Well, maybe they thought no one would notice. Let's begin. Well, apparently Transport for London recently had to refund more than £10,000 in fine. Why, you ask? Well, it turns out that a ULEZ camera was pointing in the wrong direction. Just imagine being one of those 927 drivers who received penalty tickets from this camera at the old Reading Junction in Harrow, northwest London. I mean, you think you're just cruising along, minding your own business, and then BAM! You get slapped with a fine. It's like playing a game of London's Got Fines or something on the streets, isn't it? But local Conservative Party councillor Marilyn Ashton has some choice words for this blunder. She apparently called it a total fiasco, and who could blame her, eh? And that's because if you're driving down Old Reading in a non-compliant car, you shouldn't really at all have to pay a charge because those roads are exempt. But no, those unlucky souls had to pay £12.50 fee, all because the camera was given them the virtual middle finger in the wrong direction. I mean, Marilyn, who's lived in the area for 5 decades, claimed it took weeks to fix this error, and more than 900 drivers had to shell out for a mistake they didn't make. And if anything, in my opinion, it's kind of like charging someone for an ice cream cone and handing them a scoop of mashed potatoes instead, isn't it? Unacceptable, incompetent and disgraceful. Those are apparently Marilyn's words. It's like a symphony of frustration, isn't it? Now, of course, recently the ultra-low emission zone, or ULEZ, expanded to outer London, didn't it? Charging drivers £12.50 a day just to use their cars. If their car is non-compliant, that is. And one of those few boundary lines splits the borough of Harrow in two. And that is where one of the cameras was installed the wrong way round. And thereby charging drivers travelling north through one junction that falls outside the zone. Just makes me wonder if one of these engineers who installed the camera was dyslexic or something like that. I mean, how hard is it to get a camera pointed in the right way? I mean, what do they want? A giant arrow pointed on the thing. Marilyn even apparently called on London Mayor Sadiq Khan to apologise for the embarrassment, because let's face it, we're not talking about a handful of unlucky drivers here, are we? But to be honest, I doubt he did. And in Marilyn's own words, this whole debacle reeks of blatant carelessness, incompetence and arrogance. It's kind of like trying to assemble a Kia furniture, isn't it, without the instructions, and then blaming the customer for not building it correctly. But anyway, the article says that a spokesperson for TfL said, "We apologise for this error. Unfortunately, the camera was incorrectly positioned. It was switched off though once we were informed of the error and has been repositioned. And we have refunded any charges that were wrongly issued." It added that all cameras on the London boundary have been checked and they are now correctly positioned. Well, it just makes me wonder how many more cameras may have been pointed in the wrong way. I mean, maybe, who knows, Sadiq Khan may have been thinking, "Oh, I wonder what else we can expand. Maybe slightly over here. I'll just point the camera over that way to see what that area looks like and how many fines we may get." Although, to be honest, I could be wrong on that. Although it wouldn't surprise me if that area and areas like it also got swallowed up by the dreaded ULEZ zone in a few years' time. So we've got some good old bad news next, and it all depends which side you're on. I personally think it's good news because I don't think we should be forced into doing anything, but EV sales are plummeting, and that's not because that people are hold on to their petrol or diesel cars for as long as they can. No, it's apparently because Rishi recently decided to put the brakes on banning all other car types, and so he should. Why should we all be forced to go out and buy a certain thing if we don't want to? And therefore I think that this 2035 ban is just going to be put back even further in general, letting people of course continue to buy petrol and diesel cars, which are no doubtedly much cheaper than those EV ones. But hey, I mean, how dare he spoil the EV party, right? Originally, of course, they wanted to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030, but oops-a-daisy! It had to be pushed back for a whopping 5 years. No doubt all the eco nerds out there will say, "How dare you! I guess saving the planet can wait another 5 years!" But the amount that EV sales have fell by because of this is, to be honest, quite shocking me. In September, for example, the amount of electric vehicles bought dropped by nearly 15%. And if anything, it's like the EV market itself had a collective temper tantrum and decided to take its batteries and go home. And that is, of course, despite 45,323 electric motors being registered that month. The market apparently slipped by a whopping 16.6%. And who knows, Autocar itself probably needed to take a few extra volts just to process those numbers, I'm guessing. And this, of course, let's not forget the Give Us a Break campaign. I mean, recently, of course, Rishi seemed to tear up the net zero policies, which I personally think is a good thing, because let's face it, anything that costs us a lot of money, or any more money that is necessary in the middle of a cost of living crisis, is a bit of a kick in the gonads, isn't it? But of course, it's not just because of Rishi, because Renault also have apparently made a U-turn of their own. And that is because they've decided to stick with the popular petrol model. That's cheaper than EVs, which, let's face it, with petrol, it's not hard to do, is it? With the car itself, I mean. It's like they looked at the price of electric cars and thought, nope, we're staying with the fossil fuel game a little bit longer, and therefore people people can hopefully buy more of our cars. And a nuclear apparently boosts a 1 litre engine which can take the drivers from 0 to 60 in 12 seconds. And apparently it's also cheaper than the Vauxhall Corsa. But of course Renault apparently is committed to making the fully electric switch in the future. But for now they're keeping one foot in a petrol puddle and the other one in an electric pond. Which, let's face it, has given us all a bit of a shock, isn't it? And of course let's not forget about VW. They've decided to press pause on the EV production themselves. The factory in Germany will be on hold until October the 16th. Meanwhile, the assembly line for the ID3 model is taking a bit of a siesta of its own. In the first 2 weeks of this month, that is. It's like the EV market is having a break, hoping that when it comes back, people will be more excited, I'm guessing. But anyway, the article says that cratering demand on the continent and the scrapping of major government subsidies to incentivise the building of EVs are understood to be at the root of the decision. And the latest data shows that electric car sales have plummeted as more drivers opt for petrol and diesel cars. And the drop in motorist purchases in EVs comes as Rishi Sunak put the brakes on banning all other car types. In a major speech delivered from Downing Street last month, the Prime Minister pushed stopping all sales of petrol and diesel cars back 5 years, and it has seen the average cost of second-hand EVs slashed by nearly a quarter apparently last month, according to research by Auto Trader. And Elon Musk's popular Tesla brand has been one of the worst affected, as well as of course other high-end models from BMW and Mercedes-Benz. Well, apparently a bunch of protesters thought it would be a good idea to give Les Miserables in London West End a taste of their revolutionary spirit. Imagine the Sodium Theatre was in full swing of the rendition of One Day More. You know, the iconic song involved the waving of a red flag, a symbol of revolution. But these protesters, they actually decided to upstage John Jean and his gang. Instead of the usual red flag, they rolled out their very own Just Stop All flag. And if anything, it kind of seems they took a break from laying in the road and peeing us all off and decided to do it while people are trying to watch a musical instead. And hisses that could rival a Shakespearean villain's demise. To be or not to be disruptive, that is the question, and they chose unfortunately to be very disruptive. But the thing is, those creative or stupid minds, in my opinion, then of course decided to chain themselves to the stage with bicycle locks. And of course, as you can imagine, the chaos went on and the performance was halted for a whopping 20 minutes. The cast, of course, no doubt went backstage for a nice cup of tea while all this crap was going on. And the audience was shuffled out like bewildered sheep. I mean, talk about a showstopper, literally. And of course, I'm guessing, if anything, the actors wish that it's just a pity they didn't decide to do it in the performance of Grease, because hopefully then they might have had some bolt cutters on set that they could have sorted them out with. Either that, or one of the students might have had an elastic band that they could have flicked into a certain area, which would have made them move very quickly. But let's face it, these activists, or whatever they want to be called, certainly do know how to make an entrance, don't they? Forget the barricades, they of course decided to bring locks to a musical fight. It's as if they thought, why settle for a quiet protest when of course we can be the stars of the show and pee everyone off? And no doubt, of course, all these eco-idiots would just love the thing that's about to happen in this video, which, to be honest, could be a massive problem for all of us drivers.